to the place in the middle of the sun. And we'll sing this song, sing it one by one.
Hey guys, hope you're having a great day. I got a great conversation for you today where I welcome Yuval Mann. And Yuval's got a super interesting story, and I thought it'd be great to have him on to share it and help unlock some things with our listeners. And to let Yuval tell you in his own words, he says that during his 20s, he carried a lot of trauma, shame, and guilt around his sexuality and relating to women due to his upbringing in an extreme Jewish orthodox community. He left that community and then embarked on a journey of discovery into letting go of the shame, the blockage, and everything that was holding him back. And that's exactly what we talk about today. And since then, he's become a bondage artist and an intimacy educator. And he's been doing that for almost a decade now. And his story is super powerful. And to me, it gives you a lot of hope because there's a lot of shame around sexuality, even if you didn't come from a fundamentalist religious background. And Yuval's story shows that you can overcome that and then dive deep into your sexuality. And he shares how to do that, some tools to make that jump and to explore. And I really enjoyed learning a little bit more about bondage as well as some specifics that Yuval shares and how it can be so valuable to your relationship, creating more eroticism, especially in long-term relationships. So I hope you guys enjoy today's conversation as much as I did. And as always, thanks so much for tuning in, telling your friends and family about the show, and leaving those 5-star reviews on iTunes. I really appreciate it. So hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Enjoy today's show. Hi, Yuval. Thanks so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you so much. It's absolutely my pleasure.
So today I want to dive into your work as a bondage artist and intimacy educator. But I thought a good place to start would be having you share your story and background. Obviously, it's a unique story, how you got into this, where you came from, and then we will dive into the other stuff. So how did you get started as a intimacy educator and bondage artist?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure. My story started, I used to be a Jewish orthodox, fundamentalist Jewish orthodox. If you know what it is, you probably saw them here and there. I didn't grow up in the beginning of my life like this, but me and my family, due to my father getting really sick with cancer, we moved and became Jewish Orthodox. And I spent most of my life, pretty much from the age of 10 to the age of 18, most of my growing up years, in various Jewish Orthodox institutes. And as wonderful as it is spiritually in some ways, it was also a very restricted environment when it comes to relationships with the other sex, and when it comes to a lot of things in the day-to-day life, as you can probably imagine, a fundamentalist community. When I left the community, when I was about 18, I joined the army for 3 years, as it's mandatory in Israel, where I grew up, where I'm from. And right after I finished, literally a day after, I booked a plane ticket, and that was 2012. Since then, I'm traveling pretty much constantly. And I think that the restrictions that I've experienced as growing up adult, especially during puberty years, when you really are curious, and literally your body is searching for, information for the other sex, for what is being a sexual human being in a body in this lifetime. And I had nothing around it. Like, I was in boys only institutes. Masturbation was highly forbidden and considered a great sin. And so I had no sources to draw from, and I had no idea. And so as I was leaving the community, I was really finding myself in a secular world, pretty clueless of, how to communicate myself physically and sexually and intimately with other people in a way that is constructive and healthy. And so I had to learn everything myself. And I started reading a lot of books, and this whole happening was really, really pushed me to dedicate my life to the exploration of human sexuality and the relationships between sexes, the relationship between genders, the relationship between human beings, sexually, intimately, was really a huge fascination of mine. And so this last almost a decade that I think more than a decade that I was traveling around, I was really dedicating my travels to going around the world, and every city or every country that I'm arriving at, exploring the sex positive scene in the place. And so from fetish communities to BDSM communities to bondage communities later on, when I got exposed to that beautiful rabbit hole of Japanese bondage art. And this is pretty much what I was doing in my free time. Professionally, I was doing a bunch of other things as a digital nomad. And pretty much since I started traveling, in the beginning, I just did whatever I could to get by and keep traveling. And slowly I started building my own businesses online. But I never thought or dreamed or planned on, working with people one-on-one in groups, facilitating workshops, or building courses that are about sexuality and relationships and intimacy for people. It was never the plan. I was really doing it for my own sake, for my own good, for my own curiosity. And so I studied under a lot of teachers, a lot of masters in various schools of thoughts when it comes to sexuality and intimacy. And then finally, only 2 years ago, around where the pandemic started, actually, an incredible coincidental turn of events and a lot of people asking for it brought me to finally start sharing my content. And I started sharing it all over social media, and people happened to really like it and ask me for help, from consultation to facilitation of workshops to a bunch of other things, sharing what I learned throughout these years. So I've never got any degree or anything professionally from any institution or anything like that. But I guess people prefer the hands-on real life experience over the professional scholarly knowledge. So yeah, and here we are.
Well, thank you for that primer, and certainly sharing your story and your experience would be very powerful to people that have a lot of shame or just resistance against exploring their own sexuality. You come from the extreme version of that, with a religion and culture that it was very much suppressed, as you said, a sin for a lot of these things to even think about, more or less do. So I guess we could start there, and I'd like you to share with our listeners, if someone is feeling shame around sexuality and maybe they come from a fundamentalist religious background, maybe they're in it now, or maybe it's just kind of the built-in shame, especially in Western cultures around sexuality, how they can start to explore their sexuality and release some of that shame and then explore the outer realms of it as you have.
Okay, sure. It's a wonderful question. And maybe a good place to start is a bit of a vulnerable share on my end. I remember being about 14, 15, just around puberty, maybe a bit after, and being in a boys only institute, as I mentioned, and naturally having wet dreams, as you and the listeners probably know, semen coming out of the body can either be a natural, occurrence while you masturbate, either to porn or to whatever fantasy you have, or if you don't do that because it's highly forbidden in your culture and considered a great sin, then it comes out in sleep. So you have wet dreams and it will come out in sleep. And so that happened. And there was no precedent to that for me. There was no context for that for me. Like no one ever spoke about it around me. And I only knew that masturbation is a sin, so I didn't do that. And so obviously it would come out at night, and it felt really good physically. It's a sexual experience. But I remember waking up in the morning after wetting my bed, after a wet dream of sort, and feeling incredible shame. Um, and like I did something really, really bad, really wrong. And I remember I would run to the mikveh, which is the Jewish bathhouse that you go to purify your body, your soul. So it's a very religious bathhouse. I would go there right away, running away to the mikveh and washing myself and praying to God all day to forgive me for this natural thing that was occurring in my body that I had no control over. And so this is a pretty extreme example, but I'm sure a lot of people from various backgrounds and religious or fundamentalist communities can relate to that to some degree, in a sense that when on one hand you have been told that the first sin, sexuality, the first sin, and even if you haven't told it is a sin in certain cultures, no one even talk about it. So naturally you feel a bit shame, awkward. And even if it's not coming from your culture, in the household, very often kids have been having sexual experiences or pleasure in the genitals in a very early age, sometimes even pre puberty, and their parents just either like tell them don't do that, or like smack their hand, or like tell them like don't do that, or never talk about it. And so there is this like cloud of mystery and shame and awkwardness around sexuality, which results in, like you mentioned, incredible layers of shame. For me, the process of getting out of that was nothing short by simply throwing myself into the water and experiencing and opening up. So either speaking about it more openly, doing some research, sharing my experiences with my spouse, with my partner, with my friends, having discussions, talking about it, linking up with communities that are sex positive and more open around sexuality, communities that can support my growth and provide me a platform of openness and spaciousness and lack of shame around sexuality. All of these things done over the years really, really helped me heal and heal my shame and get to a point in which I carry my sexuality like I carry my body, because they are inseparable.
And for someone who is struggling with that, or that just sounds very intimidating, what are some of the things that are actionable, like self-talk? I know you said sharing it, going to those communities, but how about the internal dialogue with yourself as you experience it, or what you would encourage someone to sort of tell themselves in order to take that leap, to share openly and to feel more comfortable?
Of course. Well, like everything, it all starts with awareness, mindful awareness to what is going on in our mind. So as long as some of our thought patterns and feelings are staying unconscious, they are, detecting some of our actions in life. So as long as this shame is just lurking in the background without us being conscious about it, it's detecting how we express ourselves sexually in the day-to-day life. So the first step is to become crystal clear and aware on when those shameful thoughts are coming up. So how am I feeling in certain moments when I'm aroused, or when I masturbate, or when I'm making love with my partner, and I notice this shameful thoughts coming up, or patterns of thoughts coming up, becoming incredibly aware of them, first of all. Because the moment you become aware of something, you make the unconscious conscious, you automatically made it so it doesn't have the same power over you anymore, because you can watch it. There's this certain disassociation from the thought pattern, from the shame. So when you are aware of the shame, without rejection, without judgment, without trying to run away from it or forget about it or reject it or suppress it, just simply becoming aware of that shame. That in and of itself is the most powerful thing that you can do. Now, looking at a step further, when you are in the act of making love or self-pleasuring yourself or simply getting aroused or feeling noticing a sense of shame coming up, recognizing it for what it is and loving it for what it is. Most of the suffering that is coming up from shame or any other emotion that can come up, like anger or hurt or any kind of painful emotion that we experience as human beings, doesn't come from the emotion itself. It comes from our resistance to the emotion. So there is nothing wrong with having shame, because having shame in and of itself doesn't have to determine how you will behave in your life. You can have shame, be aware of that, and still be a very open, very loving, very expressive sexual being while being aware of your shame. It doesn't influence you as much. And so a wonderful thing that people can do if you want something even more actionable than just becoming aware is, before you even express yourself with a partner, something that I really love giving some of my clients to do is something that I call mirror work, which is basically being naked in front of a mirror and giving yourself pleasure and really looking at your body and looking at your body getting aroused and looking at the whole happening. And moreover than just the physical form, looking at and noticing all the emotions that are coming up as you are giving yourself pleasure. Because oftentimes when we are with a partner, there is another human being. It makes things a little bit more complex. So when you're with yourself, just you and you, giving yourself pleasure, exploring your own body, exploring your own arousal, exploring your own sensations, and you notice what is coming up. And usually all this shame that you're holding into is coming up there. And you look at this shame and maybe some body part that you like less and you're a bit more shameful of, like the size of your or shape of your genitals or things of that nature that a lot of people have a lot of shame around. And you simply become aware of that and give love, unconditional love, to every thought that you're having, every feeling that you're having, every body part that you're looking at, every bit of who you are as a beautiful sexual human being. I found that to be a very powerful practice.
Those are great actionable tips, Yuval. Thank you for sharing. What would you tell someone who is interested in exploring bondage, or you're saying like in your travels, like exploring all these different sexual communities? Right now, we're kind of just talking about, base level, getting comfortable with ourselves and our sexuality. And that's super important and fundamental. But then as we go to explore, now someone might want to explore bondage, and then there's shame around that. And you've given us some great tools to think about that. How can they just figure out what it is that they're into and trying different things? How did you approach that, and how do you teach that?
Before we continue on, we're going to take a short break to tell you about our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Like a Kitten. Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and I want to encourage all of you to forget the traditional chocolate and flowers and try something new and spice things up with Like a Kitten's Valentine's Day Couples Box. The Valentine's Couples Box is a one-stop shop for all your sexy Valentine's Day essentials. Don't waste hours researching lubes, vibrators, and accessories. Just grab the Valentine's Couple Box, and you will be set for a spectacular night. The box has ingredients to heighten all of your senses. You can paint each other with edible chocolate, CBD body paint, and then have each other afterwards for dessert. And of course, Like a Kitten has you covered when it comes to lube. You can choose from their 4-pack Lube Essentials Kit or their Bliss Anal Glide Lube. Don't let your sex fall into the same old routine. Spice things up this Valentine's Day and break those habits. This box includes 2 erotic games to inspire you to play in ways you've never tried before. Like a Kitten's mission is to help women own their power in all areas of life. A portion of all sales goes to charities that focus on women's empowerment, education, and health, so you can feel good about feeling good. Right now, Like a Kitten is offering our listeners 20% off and free shipping when you go to likeakitten.com/IDO or enter the code IDO at checkout. Surprise your partner with an amazing Valentine couples box. Just go to likeakitten.com/IDO or use the code IDO to get 20% off. likeakitten.com/IDO. The link is in the episode description. Today's episode is also brought to you by Let's Get Checked. Let's talk about safe sex. Did you know over 1 million sexually transmitted infections are acquired every day worldwide? And 51% of people don't get tested because they don't want to bring up sex or STDs in discussion with their healthcare provider. Well, thanks to our sponsor, Let's Get Checked, you are covered. Let's Get Checked is an at-home testing company that makes it easy and confidential to take an STD test from the comfort of your home without the awkwardness or uneasiness of visiting a clinic or a healthcare professional. They also provide free medication for certain diseases if you test positive. So here's how Let's Get Checked works. You simply go to their site, order a sexual health testing kit, and it arrives to your door in a small, discreet package. From there, you do a small finger prick and send the sample back to their lab with a prepaid shipping label. In 2 to 5 days, you'll get your results, and a Let's Get Checked nurse will be available to discuss your results with you if you'd like their feedback. Once your results are available, they will also be reviewed by a physician and released onto your online dashboard. If your results are positive, their team of nurses will contact you and guide you through the next steps. They also provide free medication straight to your door. Their clinical team will arrange for this to be sent to your home if required, so there's no need to visit a drugstore or a clinic. If you're sexually active, you should be getting tested at least annually. Let's Get Checked has 3 different STD tests. Let's Get Checked laboratories are CLIA approved, which are the highest ranking levels of accreditation. The company has performed over 2 million at-home tests. They keep your information and results confidential. Even better, our listeners get 30% off their entire order with the promo code ADVICE. Just visit letsgetchecked.com and enter the code ADVICE, ADVICE, at checkout to ensure you and your significant other are staying safe. Today's episode is also brought to you by Care Of. It's officially 2022, and now it's the time to set your wellness routine into action and prioritize your health. Care Of allows your vitamin routine to be personal, easy, effective, and constantly evolving. Stay on track with your health goals this new year thanks to Care Of's daily vitamin packs that makes organization and your resolutions easy to stick to every day. Care Of is a subscription service that ships high-quality personalized vitamins and powders conveniently to your door every month. Take a short, in-depth quiz about your health goals and lifestyle and get personally tailored recommendations based on your answers. You can stick with what Care Of recommends, or you can change up your pack at any time. Care Of's products are made from good-for-you, clean ingredients that are backed by the latest science and research, so you feel good about what's going into your body. I've been taking Care Of vitamins for a few years now, and I recommend Care Of to all my friends, especially those who are wanting to start a new routine, to feel healthier, to start taking vitamins, but they just don't know what to take or how many to take. So I recommend to all of them to take the quiz to find out exactly what is recommended. And so far, everybody that I've recommended it to absolutely loves it. Plus, the whole process of getting it shipped directly to your door and then having them be in individual packets so you know exactly what to take every day just makes life so much easier. So Care Of is now offering 50% off your first Care Of order if you go to takecareof.com and enter the code IDO50. For 50% off your first Care Of order, go to takecareof.com and enter the code IDO50.
Bondage is not something that I teach particularly. It's just a fascination of mine. It's my art. It's something that I love exploring. I got initially curious about that with one of my past partners. And then later, like she brought it to my attention because she wanted to get tied up. And I was like, that's interesting. Let me explore a little bit. So I watched some tutorials on YouTube and like connected with some people I knew that are into that kind of stuff and went to a few workshops. But it wasn't until I was in Tokyo for business for a few months that I got to see a proper show by some of the most known masters of rope. And I was fascinated. It was just so beautiful. I couldn't take my eyes off just seeing how artfully he was balancing harshness and softness, and how aware and incredibly sensitive he was to every breath, every movement, every skin shiver of his model, the girl that he was tying up. It was just, the whole thing was just so aesthetic and beautiful and just wow. So then I got really fascinated about it, and I actually went and studied under that master for a while in his studio, just one-on-one. And I think even though I don't teach people bondage specifically, because I don't, regard myself as a rope master, it's rather just a hobby of mine, but I do teach people a lot of what rope taught me about intimacy, about sensitivity, about this beautiful balance that you want to integrate in any lovemaking session or any sexual exploration with someone, which is how to balance polarities, how to balance harshness and softness, how to balance dominance and devotion, how to balance, these polarities of feminine and masculine, that's light and dark, the polarity that real attraction is actually made of. If you really look at it, what really makes something attractive between people is not how similar they are, it's actually how different they are. Different in their bodies, different in their mind, in their desires, in their fantasies. This is what makes it interesting. This is what makes the spark. And so rope taught me a lot about polarity and how to do it in a way that is safe, how to do it in a way that is constructive and helpful and loving, and also incredibly erotic and sexy. And this is something that I do integrate in my work and what I teach people, regardless if they are specifically curious about rope or not. Now, if some of the listeners are curious about exploring some rope footage, the last couple of years, the last 5 years since I became really curious about it, it seems to me that the rope scene really blew up. There are a lot of artists out there. It's enough to just write in Google Shibari. You can search for Facebook groups in your area, and you can go on kink social media like FetLife and search for events, rope workshops, rope teachers in your area. And almost in every city that I've ever visited, there is a vibrant community of rope people. So if this is what you want, it's really easy to find yourself, to get into it. But yeah, I thought it will be more interesting to speak a little bit more about why I was fascinated with rope and what it taught me. So yeah.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the polarity that you mentioned and how it seems like bondage and the rope art creates that polarity. So maybe we could do it through that context. So why is that polarity important and attractive, and how is that created in these different sexual art forms and experiences?
Sure. So to me, it seems that there is something inherent in human nature that has to do with power or playing with power or desiring to play with power. And you can see it in all layers of societal structures. But specifically, when we talk about sexuality, it's not a secret that for millennia, humans have been experimenting with power dynamics in the bedroom in a way that creates incredible attraction and eroticism and polarity. There is always this power dynamic going on, and Well, a lot of books have been written about it. To me, it seemed that it's something definitely inherent in our nature. We are seeking this kind of stuff, and you can see that. And polarity is very important in a sexual relationship because without it, there is no attraction. Minus and minus, plus and plus, they don't attract. They reject each other. So you can see it in couples that maybe are very familiar with each other and they know each other for a long, long, long time, and they are companions, beautiful companions. There is an incredible intimacy between them, but the fire of eroticism is very dull. And the reason for that is because there is no polarity. They are so enmeshed with each other that there is no polarity anymore. There is no mystery. The eroticism and mystery that is being created by having polarity is just not there anymore. And so some of the things that people have been practicing for many, many, many years to enhance polarity in sexual relations is things like power dynamics, things like BDSM, bondage, fetishes of all sorts, and role plays, all kind of things that enhance or give a platform or structure for people to play out different power dynamics in the relationships and create some ecstasy that's, newfound ecstasy and attraction and eroticism. This is a beautiful and very enticing thing for a lot of people. Now, in the many years that I spent in the BDSM and fetish community, and I went pretty deep in my exploration and my curiosity, I've learned a lot of incredible things. Something was missing. Something that I only found when I got into rope bondage. I don't know how to explain it exactly, what was that thing, but I feel like just the rope itself as a tool allow a much more versatile, much more almost it's this perfect combination of soft and harsh in the same time. It's you need to be a little bit involved in these spaces to fully understand what I'm saying, but I hope this will come across as clearly as I can. In BDSM and fetish, there is a lot of use in bondage that is made of leather and in all kinds of things that are made of iron. And if it's like floggers, so all kinds of tools to smack, to spank, to create all kinds of impact. And it's very much focused on one-pointed impact and materials that are very cold to the touch. And somehow in a rope, I find this like very beautiful balance of, yes, it can be very harsh and painful because it's a rope, it can be extreme a little bit sometimes, but at the same time, you feel like you're being hugged. And that beautiful balance for me is a beautiful representation of what I mean when I talk about polarity, this perfect balance between harshness and softness that create this very unique form of ecstasy that you experience only when you're hugged in rope or only when you're giving rope to someone. So this is for me what was so special specifically in bondage. It's versatile, it's perfectly balanced, and also the whole scene of how rope session is happening is so much more of a dance than what I usually experienced or seen in usual BDSM kind of kinky sessions. I hope that was clear. If there's something that you feel is not super clear, let me know and I will extend on that a little bit more.
If someone's listening and they're curious about exploring using rope with their partner, I know you mentioned there's lots of communities doing that. Is that really the best way to start, or is there a way for them to start at home? And how can they maybe talk to their partner about introducing this as well?
Okay, so maybe start with how to talk with a partner, and then I will give some actionable insights on how to start in a way that is safe, because safety is really important here.
Yeah.
So the way to open up about it with a partner, like about everything else, is simply having a conversation about it. Now, a very important thing, not only, especially in conversations that has to do with sexuality, but in general, things that involve some emotions or some vulnerable shares, it's very important to find what I call low stake environments to have these conversations. Because a lot of times people will have these conversations in the middle of lovemaking or while they're in bed about to make love, or when their partner is preoccupied with something else or stressed about something. And it's just going to set you up for disaster. And so the best thing that you can do is, first of all, find a place that is low stake. So when you're both calm and relaxed and maybe having a glass of wine, or even just going to your partner and asking them, hey, is it a good time for you to talk right now? There is something I want to share with you. Let's find a time that is, that you're free and you have time for that. And finding these spaces of time in the busyness of life to have an open and honest and relaxed discussion about these topics. And once you found that time, start with simply sharing what you experience. A very good place to start from is sharing, first of all, how much you already enjoy the things that you do love and enjoy with your partner. And then go into some things that you perhaps are curious to introduce into your dynamic and ask your partner, how do they feel about that? Now, it's very rare that when you present things in that way, like, hey, I wanted and I'm curious to explore this rope that I saw. It looks really beautiful for me. And I thought that introducing that can help us connect even deeper to each other and create or explore new levels of pleasure together. What do you think? It's very rare that a partner that loves you will not be into that. Now, when it comes to actually finding a way to start, safety is a key word here, because in all of these things that include power dynamics and sexuality in general, safety is a key element. And so I would not recommend just buying some rope and starting to tie things up, because you can create damage. You don't know what you're doing. So a very, very good thing to start is either buying some rope, proper rope, that its utility is for bondage. So a special rope that you can buy. You can find it online. If you write Shibari rope, buy, purchase, order, you can find a bunch of this online. And then go and start with beginners tutorials. There are a lot of courses, one of which, and by the way, I don't work with them and I'm not affiliated with them, but I benefited a lot from them. So you can start from there. It's called shibaristudy.com. They're an incredible school. It's all online, incredible high quality. And you can start from beginner rope and go up to very advanced suspension stuff with time. So if you have a willing partner, I think it's like a $25 or something subscription for a month. It's a wonderful place to start with. And this is where I would start.
That's Shivari?
It's shibaristudy.com. It's SHIBAI study.com.
Got it. Yeah, we'll have a link in the show notes to that. I'm definitely curious. And yeah, it's important, obviously to do this safe, to release the shame around it and talking to your partner about it. And yeah, if you're just looking to spice up your long-term relationship, sex life, this is something definitely to explore, to help create that polarity, to help create some novelty, something different. It might not be something you guys dive into and
Absolutely.
You're in the community and you're like just doing it every, once a week. It could be just once a month or once every couple months to create something new, because it is so easy to fall into a routine and patterns. And this is something definitely useful and interesting, how it can be erotic and a turn on to have just novelty. You might not be into the power dynamics and all that, but then the power dynamics, certainly it's another level of the experience. What have you found most appealing through your exploration of it? And is it something that you find some people really get into and some it's just like an occasional date night thing? How do you look at it?
I mean, everybody have their own unique sexual expression. There is no blueprint. And this is something that I think is the most beautiful about it, there is no one way or one script to live your relationship and to live your life and to live your sexual life. It's about experimenting and exploring with an open and playful mind and finding what works for you. But I think especially, and if the listeners, or a lot of the listeners are couples, especially for people who find that after a while relationships become stagnant, as they do, and it's a very natural thing and it's totally okay. But reintroducing, keeping the attraction, keeping the passion, keeping the polarity alive is an active act. It's not, it's something that you do. It's something that you consistently do. It's not something to just stay there, as some people, expect. And part of that doing is exploring together new things all the time, reintroducing things and figuring out, do we like it? Do we don't like it? Do we like it like that? Do we like it like that? And bondage is one of these that can really, really, really add a lot of beauty and new levels of pleasure and eroticism to your sex life. And as a result of that, to every other aspect of your relationship, because the way we express ourselves sexually is how we experience everything else.
I agree. And yeah, just start. It can be intimidating, scary. There's shame around it, but unless you do it, you can read and think about it as much as you want, but you really got to take that leap. And you certainly did. And coming from a background where it was sinful to even masturbate. And that's why I think it's such an inspiring story, because there's a lot of hope for people that might not have come from that background, but still feel the shame. And it's like, hey, you can break through that. You've given us some great tools to do it and explore, and it's okay. And that's an important thing for all of us to internalize, and it can help us personally and certainly in our relationships. So Yuval, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and sharing this valuable information. Before we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to leave our listeners with, or maybe something that you'd like to emphasize, and let our listeners know where they can find you online, and then we'll say goodbye?
First of all, thank you so much for having me, taking the time for asking these beautiful questions and getting these beautiful answers out of me. It was a really pleasure to be here. Thank you for everybody who is listening. I have nothing special to say, but just sending you a token of love. And I hope that wherever you are, whatever you are experiencing, we are experiencing pretty uncertain times, and people are experiencing a lot of pressure and stress. So all I want is to send you love and remind you that you are love and that everything is beautiful. And if people want to find me, I'm active on all social medias, but I'm most active on TikTok. So yuvalman.s. And my website also, yuvalman.com. So Yuval, YUVALMAN.com. You can find all of my podcast and my content and blog. And if you want to dive deeper, a lot of free content there. And yeah, we're happy to be in touch.
Thanks so much, Yuval. And our listeners can find all the links from today's show in the show notes and at idopodcast.com. And thanks again for coming on the show.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode. As always, all the links to the guest, as well as any of their recommendations, will be in the show notes page. You can find the link to that in the episode description or by going to idopodcast.com. Click on the podcast tab up at the top and you will have access to all the episodes that we've ever done. There are over 300 of them. And while you're on our website, if you haven't checked out our free 14-day happy couple challenge, we really hope you do. It's a free email challenge that we send to you. It's 14 days of fun, easy, doable challenges to help strengthen and improve your relationship. And if you're looking for something that provides a little more help with working on your relationship, whether it's improving intimacy or communication with your partner, or just bringing the spark back, we would love for you guys to check out our online course, Spark My Relationship. We're offering $100 off to all of our listeners if you go to sparkmyrelationship.com/unlock. We've worked with over 15 psychologists and therapists to create the real life tools and strategies that they are teaching their clients. So we wanted to give them to you. It's a self-paced online course that can be done in as little as a month or up to 3 months. You can really decide how much or how little you want to do with your partner, or maybe just yourself. So we hope you guys check that out. It's sparkmyrelationship.com/unlock. Have a great day.